Our next item, 6.5, 10:30 a.m. Consideration of presentation of pavement management plan update and 10-year pavement rehabilitation plan. Public Works Director De Leon.
Good morning. So, first part of this presentation this morning is the update of the county's pavement management plan, and we have our consultant, Deborah with NCE is on with us. Good morning, Deborah. Nice to see you. Just a little history here. NCE has been the consultant that has been helping not only Lake County but our two incorporated cities with pavement management updates for many years. We do the update about every 2 or 3 years, and she can help correct that if I got that wrong. But NCE just completed the updates for the two cities and the county, and so what Deborah will be presenting this morning is the update to the pavement management plan. It is the overall county plan. Following her presentation, I will follow up with a short summary of some funding and the road department, and then we'll get into the 10-year plan, which Deborah and NCE also prepared for us, and it's specific for road rehabilitation. So with that, Deborah, if you'd like to take over the presentation and give us the update on the pavement management plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I will share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen. I hope you can see my screen.
We can see you, but we can barely hear you now.
Okay. Is it better now?
Sam, can you get the... Maybe we could get that door closed.
We are unable to hear you on your mic now. Whatever changed.
Can you hear me?
That's better.
That's better. Thank you.
Okay, probably because I wasn't talking before. Okay, all right. So thank you, Scott, for introducing me and my team. So like Scott mentioned that we have been working with the county and Lakeport and Clear Lake for over a few years to update their pavement management program. So today I'm gonna walk you all through that what we have done under this update and what the county's pavement condition looks like and what's the funding needs, funding deficit, and under different funding scenarios, what the county's pavement network condition would be looking like. So by now, you kind of know that in general, pavement management program is designed to provide an objective information so that the managers can make more informed and consistent cost-effective decision. Now, PMPs, the pavement management program, basically answer 4 questions. What streets does the county own or maintain? What condition are they in? And what repairs are needed and when? And also how much funding is needed to maintain or improve the streets. And for this purpose, we use the Street Saver software as a tool to answer all these questions. So under this pavement program management update, what we have done was we updated the street sewer inventory. We worked with the county to check that if there has been any new streets that has been added or not. Next, we performed the pavement condition survey. So here it's important to mention that we only performed the condition survey on the streets which had a current PCI over 25. That means we have not inspected any streets in the failed condition. So what's important to mention, because sometimes the streets might not be failing the way the street saver model is predicting. It could be in better condition or worse condition, but we use the street saver model to predict the projected PCI for those streets under failed condition. Next, we have updated the pavement maintenance records. We worked with the county to check that what streets have been paved over the last few years so that those streets are updated in the database. Next, we worked with the county to decide on the decision tree. What is a decision tree? So the decision tree is actually where you decide on different treatment strategies for different streets in different pavement condition categories. So if you have a poor street, what type of treatment it would need versus if you have a good street, what type of treatment you would need. And then we actually looked through the recent bid tabs to come up with a reasonable cost, especially because this update was being done after the pandemic. A lot has been changed since then. So we update this decision tree in terms of both treatment strategies and also the unit cost of the treatment, looking into the updated bid tabs. And also we worked, we kind of fixed some linkage issues for the county's GIS map. GIS map is a feature in the street saver where you can actually see the maps. So it helps you understand which area is in poor condition versus which area is in good condition graphically over a map. And next, we perform the budget needs analysis. So budget needs analysis basically tells you that this is your network, and if you have unlimited budget, unconstrained budget, these are the treatment you should do to bring your network to a certain condition that from that on you can maintain your pavement. Because a street saver is always preaches the strategy of maintaining good condition in a good street in good condition. That means so that you have to spend less money to maintain, rather you are making it fall into poor condition category where you have to spend more money. Next, we performed several budget scenarios for the county to give an idea that what type of funding level you need to have to reach to a target PCI. So if your existing budget is not enough, then how much money you would need to improve a PCI to 50 or 70. And also, we developed a work plan for the county. So we also ran the scenarios to see if you incorporate that work plan, then what will be your pavement condition be looking like. And next, we summarize all of these findings into a report, and we submitted the report to the county. We also conducted a street saver training where we showed how you can actually work with these street saver tools on your end to update your inventory, like all this M&R, maintenance and rehabilitation treatment record, and do a lot of things on your end. Because it's a very user-friendly tool, you not necessarily always need a consultant to do all those small tasks. So we also conducted a street saver training, rigorous street saver training, which showed all of those. So next, under this update, we actually updated all of county, Lakeport, and Clear Lake's pavement management system. So what is included in the Lake APC network? Clear Lake has approximately 81 centerline miles, Lakeport around 30, and of course the Lake County has the largest, approximately 500 centerline miles or 499 centerline miles. So the asset value, if you look at, basically is telling you, if you are to reconstruct your network from scratch, then this is the money you need. So that is telling you your asset value of your network. So the Clear Lake has an asset value of $53 million, Lakeport 44. Since Lake County is the largest, so it has approximately $374 million of asset value. So total Lake APC has 0.5 billion of asset value. Today's presentation, we will only focus on Lake County's update. So this is just to give you an idea that what we did under this update and where all other agencies stand in terms of asset value and centerline mines. So next, this pavement condition is typically quantified using pavement condition index, which is PCI, and it ranges between 0 to 100. So 0 being the best and 0 being the worst and 100 being the best. This PCI scale is divided generally into 4 condition category, 0 to 25. Less than 25 is basically failed or poor, very poor street. Between 25 to 50 is considered poor. 50 to 70 is fair condition, and above 70 it's good or very good street. So if you want to look at in terms of photos, so a very good street would be like it's just kind of paved, or it's few years after paving where you can barely see any cracks. On a fair street, you would expect to see some cracks and probably some distress, and probably you might, when you're riding, it might be a little bit rough. On a poor street, you will see a lot of cracks, especially along the wheel path, and you might see some dips as well. And the right quality, if you're riding on it, it will be rough. And if you look at a poor street, then it is like kind of broken into pieces. It's a lots of distress on the street. Basically, it's not looking very good. And of course, the riding quality will be very, very rough. So this is kind of an comparative, like a visual presentation of what the streets might look like in different condition categories. Now, the county-wide PCI, that means if like the overall, this Lakeport, Clear Lake and county, if we do an area weighted average PCI, the county-wide PCI is 37. And the county's PCI is 34. So it's almost towards like a very poor or failed condition category. So it's very important to understand that some actions needs to be taken to kind of lift up the PCI towards the green zone. So the next one, I'm showing you the network PCI. It is basically the historical PCI over the years. So all these years you're seeing, basically we inspected your network and those are the inspected PCI. So it was 42 in 2011, it was 41 in 2014. The last update we did for the county was in 2018 when it was 37. So you can see a downward incline and it dropped 3 points since 2018. The 2022 statewide average PCI is 65. So also NCE works with the California, all the statewide, all the agencies to kind of prepare this final report where we have the survey forms and then we document all the agencies' PCI and then we calculate this statewide PCI, which happens to be 65. If we look at the breakdown of the major versus local streets, so you can see that the arterials, all the streets, all the functional class, I'd say, all the functional class is in poor condition. The rural local is the worst with 25. It will be rate in just probably 1 year if we if we do not do anything in this area, because a PCI of less than 25 is considered failed condition. The county also has a little bit portion of airfields and the residentials is probably not very rural. Those are in good condition, but that's a very small amount of the area. I just kept it to show you so that you understand the portion of the different function class the county has in terms of area. Now, I always think that the PCI number could be a little bit, doesn't tell you the whole story all the time. So if you look at the condition breakdown by area, you can see that for approximately 16% of your area is in good condition. So it's very, very important that you at least maintain that 16% so that it doesn't fall into the blue or yellow zone. And then the goal should be to reduce the area of the red. That means your approximately 42% of the pavement network is in failed condition. So that's where it comes into that. If you have a high needs, that's because you have a lot of area in failed condition. So it needs a really rigorous treatment. So the street civil strategy always recommends that you maintain your good condition so that it doesn't fall into the worst condition category. So this is kind of giving you an idea of your condition breakdown by the area. So next, let's look at what was the typical treatment strategy. So this is the pavement deterioration curve. This pavement deterioration curve is a very common curve that is used to explain the deterioration of a pavement life over time. So what it's basically telling is that being proactive is always less expensive than reactive. So if you have a streets in your green zone, then the proactive treatment to preserve this pavement in good condition will be less expensive if you want to rehabilitate a street in a red zone. Of course, it will be more expensive to spend the money to reconstruct the structure. So it's always very important that we act proactive than reactive. And also we need money for that. So to show you that the decision tree that we have developed in discussion with the county was that if it's a good street, it should be mostly the slurry seal or chip seal, which is approximately $3 per square year to $4.75 per square year. That's kind of the range. If it's a fair street, then single or double chip seal, since the county has more rural areas. In poor condition, earlier county has chip seal, but if you do not do some types of small rehabilitation, even if it's a thin mill and overlay, the chip seal streets you're spending money, but you will see a lot faster failure if you do not do a little bit more aggressive treatment on your poor or failed street. And then for the failed street, it's either FDR with some types of overlay or probably some double chip seal. So it depends from street to street, depending on the purpose, the traffic level, and also the condition, and also the weather. So this is kind of a typical decision tree, and all those unit cost was developed kind of looking at the surrounding big tabs last 2 years. So how have the maintenance costs changed since 2018? So as you can see, for the mill and overlay, of course, the HMA cost drives the most, the unit cost. So the HMA cost per ton has increased a lot since 2018. And overall, we have seen that overall treatment cost has increased by more than 50%. So it's kind of giving you an idea that even if you have the same budget amount, you might see not that much improvement because now that the treatment cost has increased. So you will also have to keep that in mind. So now the fun part, needs versus available funding. So the 10-year need, depending on the pavement condition category for the county, came around $269.4 million. Then 10-year budget, available budget, is $45 million because we got that this county's available funding is currently $4.5 million per year. So if we put that on a chart, you can see that your available funding is only being able to meet 17% of the needs. So 83% of the needs is still remaining. So that's kind of telling you, giving you a picture of the budget deficiency in terms of county's funding level. Under this available funding, what the scenario would look like. So as you can see that the PCI is now 34. It will be increasing if you keep doing the work, but then eventually over the 10 years, it will drop to 26. And this is alarming because PCI less than 25 is considered field condition category. So the county needs to kind of at least maintain the PCI. If not, it falls under in the failed condition category. And of course, you can see the deferred maintenance. So will increase. What is the deferred maintenance? The deferred maintenance is basically the backlog. The treatment that you are not being able to do because of your funding constraint, because of limited funding. So those are the treatments, those are the treatment costs being added as your deferred maintenance that you should do, but you cannot do because you do not have the money. So as you can see, the funding deferred maintenance will increase approximately more than $100 million. So that's a lot. Now, if we look at, again, like I said, just a PCI number doesn't always tell you the full story. The current condition is that currently you have 16% of the network in good condition category, which will increase a little bit under your current funding, so which is a good news. But you can also see that more than 50% of your network will be in failed condition category. So this is the alarming part, that we have to make sure that we do the treatment in this area so that this red zone doesn't extend, rather it shrinks. So it is kind of telling you the projected condition in 10 years. So this is a 2032 projected condition if you keep spending $4.5 million each year for 10 years. So next, let's look at, now that we saw that what your payment condition would be under your available budget, what would you need if you want to improve your PCI? So this is showing that a PCI is improving to 40 over 10 years, okay? So, and then under this 40, you would expect to see that of course, the good condition will increase, and also the poor condition, the failed condition will shrink a little bit. It's not a lot, but still it's an improvement compared to your current available funding. Deferred maintenance will also increase, but if you compare with your current funding, it was increasing $100 million, but it's increasing here approximately $20 million over 10 years. And you would need $122.8 million. That means approximately $123 million over 10 years to improve your PCI to 40. Now, this budget scenario also includes the work plan, 10-year work plan that we have developed. So to give you a little bit of background of the 10-year work plan is that initially we worked with the county to develop a 5-year work plan. And the county's goal was to improve the PCI to 50 over 5 years. And it showed from the analysis that it would need a tremendous amount of very unrealistic money over 5 years if you want to target that PCI. So we discussed with the county, and county proposed that why don't you convert this 5-year work plan to a 10-year work plan, and then let's make it more realistic and reasonable. So we converted that 5-year work plan into a 10-year work plan. And now what you can see that if you implement that 10-year work plan, your PCI will improve to 40 over 10 years. So here, what is showing in the map is all these black areas is basically what you have treated over last few years between 2018 and 2022. And all the other colors are showing different here. So year 1 is over here, the purple, year 2 is over here, and then the orange is year 3. This light teal is year 4, and then the green is year 5. So what is going in a kind of an anti-clockwise direction? Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then again it's coming around here, year 6, year 7, year 8, year 8, and then year 10. So while we were developing this work plan, we kept few things in mind. grouping of treatment, and also the neighborhood. We don't want to have various areas being treated in 1 year that increase your mobilization cost. If you can group this treatment by areas and by treatment types, then you would expect to get a better bid results. Number one, and also it will minimize the mobilization cost, and also it will minimize the traffic disruption around surrounding your areas of the treatment. So to do that, to keep it in one area, we try to group it as much as possible to make it more efficient in terms of cost. Now, if you look at the projected PCI and the budget amount, that if you spend approximately $10 to $12 million per year, we are, according to the plan we developed, we are actually treating 16 centerline miles, 27 centerline miles each year, and the projected PCI will eventually kind of be maintained and improve to 41 and then kind of drop to 40. So basically you can tell that it is increasing to 40. The total budget you would need is, like I said, $122.8 million for this work plan. And a total of 190 centerline miles will be treated. So this is a planning phase. Of course, when it goes into the design phase, a lot of things will change. Each road should be examined individually to understand that what treatment would be more cost effective and depending on the traffic level and everything. We drove most of your county to develop this work plan, but we definitely did not drive every single centerline miles of 499 centerline miles. But we understood kind of the area, that which area would need what type of treatment so that we can make it a more cost-effective work plan. So this is kind of an overall idea of the 10-year work plan, and I believe that Scott will go over a little bit more details after my presentation. Next, now that we showed you that under this work plan, your PCI will improve to 40 over 10 years. This is showing how much money you need if you want to improve your PCI to 50. So over 10 years. And of course, the deferred maintenance you can see is decreasing. But for that, you actually need $165.4 million over 10 years. And as you can see, your the field condition area will be shrinking, and more than 50% of your network will be in good condition, so which is really promising to look in terms of the pavement condition category in this one. Next, we also ran another scenario where we showed that how much you would need to improve the PCI to 70. That means to good condition category. And I know it's a lot of money. It will need $260.4 million over 10 years. And as you can see, your deferred maintenance will decrease a lot. So it's a lot of money to target to improve to PCI over 70. But you can see that more than 80%, almost 80% of your network will be in good condition, and only 13% will be in failed condition. So this is a really, really drastic change that you will see if your PCI is 70 over 10 years. So now that I showed you different funding level, this is kind of a compact comparison of the impact of different funding levels. So this left-hand side, y-axis is showing 10-year funding level in dollar million. That means your existing budget is $45 million over 10 years, and the PCI will drop to 26. If you want to improve your PCI to 40, you will need $122.8 million, and this scenario also includes your work plan, the work plan that we have developed. Next, to improve the PCI to 50, we should need $165.4 million. And next, improve the PCI to 70, we should need $260 million. So you can see the increase in budget depending on your target of PCI. And these are the 2032 PCI, like at the end of the 10 years. So now let's look at the deferred maintenance. This is kind of showing the trend over the 10 years course. So right now, before even we start any work, your deferred maintenance is $205 million. Under the existing budget, it will increase to $315 under the work plan, it will still increase, but not a lot like your existing funding. If you improve to 50, because 50 means it's kind of entering into the fair condition. The 40 is still in poor condition. So it's still in fair condition, it's dropping. And also, if you improve the 70, then it will drop the most to $60 million. So this is showing the trend of deferred maintenance, change in deferred maintenance over 10 years under different funding level. Now, this is showing the condition category, the change of condition category breakdown over 10 years under different funding levels. So this is the current condition, 16%. And as you can see, over each condition category, the good condition category is actually increasing. Under existing budget, the failed category also increased. But all other one, if you target a PCI to improve 40, 50, and 70, your failed condition will shrink a little bit under this one and more under these two different scenarios. So this kind of is telling you the full story of what will happen to your condition, payment condition in terms of areas in different condition category. Okay. Next, let's look at a comparison of Lake APC agencies. So this is the total annual budget that we got from the agencies when we were running the scenarios for updating the payment management plan. The Clear Lake has a lot of money, $2.2 million per year, depending on their size of the network. Lakeport has only $285,000 per year, and county has $4.5 million per year. Now, this is not it's just kind of telling you the big picture, but if we want to measure it in terms of one unit, kind of compare apples to apple, you can see that available budget per centerline miles for Clear Lake has the highest. So it has $27,000, and this is because that they passed a major V in 2016, which added approximately $2 million to their budget, and they have been doing a lot of work since then. The Lakeport has $9,000 per centerline miles, and Lake County has the biggest network, around 500 centerline miles, but $4.5 million per year is kind of getting them to around $10,000 per centerline miles. So if we look at the change in PCI, we can see that in 2018, Clear Lake was 40, Lakeport was 40, and Lake County was 37. So it's kind of the same range, like in a poor condition category. But then 2022, when we did the inspection, we saw the inspected PCI for Clear Lake was 51. That increased 11 points. And this is because that they have treated a lot of their gravel road with chip seal. So those gravel roads typically are not programmed in the street saver, but when you pave it with chip seal, it is considered a paved road. And of course, if you do not have a lot of traffic on there, it's not deteriorating that faster. So it's actually added benefits to your network. So they did a lot of paving over last 2 to 4 years. And now, when we ran the scenarios with existing budget, the projected PCI, like in 10 years, we saw that Clear Lake will almost reach to a PCI of 70, whereas Lakeport will drop to 33 and Lake County will drop to 26. And this is under current funding. So this is the funding that I'm showing here. If we are using $4.5 million every year for over 10 years, this is the drop you will expect to see for the county. So this is kind of a comparison of the Lake APC agencies under this current update that we did. So I think I'm kind of at my last slide. So the county has a substantial investment in pavement network, which is $374.2 million. The county's network is in poor condition of 37. The treatment unit costs have increased by more than 50%. 10-year funding needs is $269.4 million. If you convert that into dollar per centerline miles, it's kind of telling you that $54,000 per centerline miles is needed. 10-year funding deficit is $224.4 million if you compare needs versus needs versus available funding. Existing annual budget of $4.5 million per year is not enough. PCI will decrease to 26 in 10 years. Deferred maintenance will increase, and failed network area will be more than 60% in 10 years. So this is kind of the takeaway of this PMP update. So if you have any questions, that's kind of end of my presentation.
Deborah, thank you. I'm sitting here watching this presentation, and this is the second time I've seen this. She did this for our APC organization, and well, my hands are a little sweaty, and it's not very good news. And Deborah, I have to thank you for just stating the facts and putting this right out there for all to see. And a couple of points that I'd like to point out here, a couple of things I'd like to highlight. One of the slides showed the increase in Clear Lake's PCI, and road conditions, there aren't a lot of things that you can fix with money, but roads is one of them. And I have to applaud the city of Clear Lake and really admire what they've been able to do there. And I think that graph that showed the jump in their PCI and the projected jump with their continued funding is remarkable. And then the other thing I'd just like to point out that this 10-year plan is a planning document. No one that I am aware of in the Public Works Department has ever come down to your board and said, here we are, and here is a plan. I don't have all the answers. I've got some ideas on what we can do to make the available funding go as far as we can. But clearly, we have some challenges ahead of us, all of us. And this is a sobering day for me personally as the Public Works Director to have this presentation made. So just got a lot of work to do. And look forward to the challenge. Deborah, thank you again for your time and certainly expertise and a very worthwhile presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
So I think we'll just move on to my presentation. It's going to be relatively short. And then we can get into individual questions if you have any. Basically, I'm just going to go over, and you've seen this presentation once before. I modified it a little bit to just focus on discretionary funding. And the bottom sentence there, or the bottom point on this particular slide says the recommended total budget for the road department is $37 million. And a lot of people will say, well, wait a second, how is that possible? And how are our roads so bad? And the reason for that is most of that, a very large percentage of that, are grant funds. We've been very successful in highway bridge program money and other programs to bring in project-specific funding. The challenge that we have is there are not very many programs, and there are very few programs that provide discretionary funding that you can use for maintenance and pavement rehabilitation and pavement preservation. There aren't programs for that. The majority of the funding, go ahead and to the next one, please. The majority of the funding that is discretionary for the road department is broken down there. The majority of it is gasoline tax. And those are broken down. HUDA, the Highway User Tax Account, is the gas tax prior to SB1. There are a couple of programs with HUDA. SB1 was enacted around 2018-19 and added additional gas tax. It was fairly controversial. There was an effort to repeal it. That failed. And then we do get a little bit of federal gas tax that's shown there, and miscellaneous fees. I put property taxes down. We projected this year, and by the way, these numbers are out of this year's budget. It hasn't been presented yet, but these are the numbers from this year's budget. 1.15 million in property tax. I know all of you must get the phone call that says, I pay my property taxes, because we get that call a lot as well. The percentage of property tax that the road department gets is 0.012% of property tax. I did just a little bit of math. If you have a $3,000 property tax, $3,000 a year in property taxes, you're paying the road department $36. $36 doesn't go very far. And so the lion's share of our revenue is through the gas tax.
So,
We switched screen.
yeah, okay, yeah. So
sorry.
can you go back to the last slide real quick? Oh. So that 9.5 million, that's going to be new revenue for this year?
That's the projected discretionary revenue for this year.
Okay. So higher than the 4.5 than we were looking at.
So when we were working with Deborah and her group, and she asked, what do you think you can spend a year? I used 4.5 million, and that's going to be, and you're gonna see another
Okay.
slide here that's gonna help explain that. But I used 4.5 million, and it's gonna be, part of that is just discretionary funding, and then some of that's also gonna be road crew force account work being done on the roads,
Okay.
okay? This slide represents the bare minimum expenses for the road department. So you've got the division salaries. The overhead is broken down into a number of things. Our DPW administration, insurance and admin charge, that's your A86 number that we get charged. Rents and leases, that's our expenses for our equipment through the ISF, and then maintenance materials is just about $780,000 for total expenditures of roughly 6.3 million. Go ahead to the next one. So you subtract those two, and you have about 3.2 million of discretionary funding available for pavement rehabilitation projects. So when I used 4.5, what I did is I added some money to that number for county road crews performing work on the roads. Okay? So that's where that 4.5 came from. I guess the bottom line is we're trying to hold this system together. This winter was extremely difficult, as everyone in the county experienced. Inordinate amount of rainfall and snowfall, a lot of moisture on the roads. We're still patching potholes, and we will be most of the summer while we're trying to prepare for other projects. But on the bright side, and I am an optimist, we have a 10-year plan. I just received 8 or 9 proposals from engineering consulting firms that are interested in preparing plans and specifications for us and our projects. What I want to do is have those plans and specifications developed using the 10-year plan, and not so much from which area is going to go first, because some of that's going to move around a little bit. But some of the work that Deborah didn't really talk about was the work that she and her crew did to determine what is the most cost-effective method for rehabilitating those roads. So there's a lot of information in the work that she's done that doesn't show up on that map. And what I want to do is have those plans and specifications put together for the entire 10 years. And that way, when funding opportunities become available through, seems like just about every time we change presidents, they want to outdo the previous one, and so they make some federal money available, and we're seeing that. And as you all know, Congressman Thompson reaches out and he asks us, do you have projects that I could put in for funding? Having those plans and specs is going to be a major step forward. And we're actually going to turn the corner from being reactionary to actually having plans for things for the future. I cannot sit here and tell you that this is going to solve all the problems, because it's not. But it is a step in the right direction. It is a change in the direction that the department has historically operated in, and that is a reactionary and react to problems. And what this is going to do is give us an opportunity to start looking forward and working towards solutions and better roads.
So what's the timeline for having those plans completed?
Well, I plan to put a project out to bid next summer, for construction next summer. So
next year.
So you look
year
at that
one?
map and it says 2023. We're technically going to start the 10-year plan in 2024. A lot of the roads that were in year one are being worked on by county forces this year. So 2024 construction season, my intent is to have a large construction project put out to bid, and we're going to start this process.
So, and that'll be the year two then? Okay. So then what's the strategy for closing that funding gap?
Well, I think we're going to need some help. There are local things that can be done. Deborah talked about the city of Clear Lake passing a measure. There may be some room in our sales tax, our local sales tax, to help bridge that gap. I think the use of our county forces as much as possible to help with this project and help with these roads will be beneficial. We utilized some federal dollars this year to upgrade our chip cart. And we're going to plan to do about 20 miles of chip seal this year. So we're going to make every effort we can.
Okay, we had seen, I think it was in the work plan, that there were different funding opportunities with the federal government and other grant programs. And you and I had a conversation about that yesterday. So who's going to be monitoring that and applying for those grants to close the gap?
Yeah, so great question. For those of you who sit on the APC, we have a wonderful consultant that is works with the APC, and they are a transportation consultant. They work very, very well, and they have helped us on numerous projects. And we're going to lean on them, and we have been leaning on them. I just mentioned the CRISA funds that were made available. They helped us through that process and helped us through getting those funds and being able to buy that chip cart. And so we're going to utilize our consultant with the APC for a lot of this.
Vice Chair Simon?
Yeah. You know, we've been looking at this for a while, sitting here on the board for 6 years, and we've been talking about the road conditions since day one. Yeah, those numbers are shocking. This is the second time I had to witness it also. from the LTA and the APC meeting. But having a plan, I think that's the most important thing. Every year, as you talked about, all right, let's take a bite each year and figure out how we can help move things forward. I think you've already mentioned a little bit about, potential opportunity for some type of a tax measure. Don't know what that looks like, but obviously needs to be in the conversation. Congressman Thompson for boots on the ready, project ready, shovel ready projects being able to be submitted, I think, are the process. So having the plan, I know it's a big lift, but having this plan is going to be important. It's going to take all of us to really, figuring out where we can go and how we're going to move this forward. I think the double chip seal stuff that's in here in the report and the chip seal is very important to be realistic about things. But there aren't no simple answers on this one. There really isn't. But having a plan and understanding where we're going is real important. The other thing too, just looking at what was provided is we need to do something or we'll be failed here pretty soon. And, we've got a lot of work to do. So us supporting Public Works and having the plan together is going to be real important, and a big hill to climb. I wish there was a simple answer, but there isn't. But having the plan is a start. We're talking to our advisory councils throughout the county, understanding the road conditions that each and one of our folks drive on, and a lot of them are failed, especially in the rural areas. So figuring out how we're moving forward it's going to be a heavy lift. So glad we have a plan that we're trying to move forward here.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. So just to clarify, I think the work plan we're being asked to approve today in the program update is scenario 2. That would stop the free fall of our PCI and kind of flatline our deferred maintenance and eventually get our PCI to 40 after 10 years. So that's the scenario, that's the plan we're being asked to adopt, right? But if I hear correctly, what we don't have in that plan is funding adequate anywhere close. No identified source of funding or sources of funding that comes anywhere close to giving us the ability to actually be proactive and fulfill the plan. So that's a disconnect when when your reach is that high, but your budget is there. Should we really be adopting that proactive plan, knowing that absent something happening, we won't be able to implement that plan? But to your point, if that gives us some projects that get a little farther down the pipeline and helps us identify those future funding sources, I'm okay with that. But the funding gap ain't going to fill itself. I don't know if you would know the answer if the consultant is still with this, but City of Lakeport also had a sales tax measure, but their PCI is projected to go down. So is there a difference in the tax rate that the City of Clear Lake and Lakeport is getting? And is there any explanation for the disparity? I know Clear Lake had a bunch of unpaved roads. Obviously, their index is going to go way up. But I was curious that if the purported solution might be a sales tax measure, for example, why the 2 examples we have already in place, Clear Lake and Lakeport, showed different trends in their PCI.
I don't have a specific answer to that. I can surmise a couple of things. There's a difference between the sales tax measures. One was a special tax. Clear Lakes was a special tax, and those dollars have to go to transportation. And I'm pretty sure that the City of Lakeport's tax was a general tax. So there could be a difference there.
Right. And also the street inventory is very different between the cities. So not going to make or break as far as today's adoption of this plan, but I do note that it doesn't, even those things, they can be difficult to pass, and then they don't get everything done. So kudos to Clear Lake again, but maybe there's a slightly different example in Lakeport.
One of the things with, I'm sorry, let me just add one last little point to that. One of the when an agency adopts a special tax specific to transportation, you're now eligible for a special pot of funds that SB1 created. And it's, I mean, it's, frankly, it's to reward those local agencies that go out and get a special tax approved. And there's just a handful of counties and cities in the state that have those special taxes. And again, they are eligible for a special fund through SB1. So there's a benefit to it. Certainly there's a risk to trying to do a special tax, but there is a benefit to it.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yeah, no, thank you for the presentation. I understand. In listening to it, also from the perspective of the PCI and ensuring that it's done in a way where it'll increase as opposed to just working on it incrementally, like having like looking at it from the same perspective like our area plans, when we're like whose was done last or whatever the case may be. The only thing is I want to make sure that we can kind of elaborate on that, because I know like in some of the town halls, there was in the 5-year plan, there was I guess the way that it was written out year-wise, so that I know that in these town halls, there's going to be questions about what changed about the years and whatnot. So I don't know if you can elaborate, because I know that it's an explanation in the report, but I just want to be able to have a better answer as well.
Yeah, we basically reversed the order. The 5-year plan, the plan was a clockwise rotation, and it started in the North Shore, and we reversed the rotation. And partly because we've got roads in the Cobb and Middletown area that were significantly damaged as in the fires and fire suppression and fire cleanup, and you know, those roads are almost unpassable, and we're trying to promote people moving back and rebuilding, and the roads are in very, very poor condition. So we reversed the rotation.
I see. And I also heard you state that they may change. They won't, this isn't really necessarily set, they may change, but the bottom line is the plan being passed in general. So
Yes.
I just want that to be, you know, out there, so there's a knowledge of it when some of the folks are thinking that the North Shore is first or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, but I do understand the need for Cobb, especially with the situation with their roads, right?
And when I say the plan may change, we have so many moving parts trying to deliver a project. And I'll just give you an example. We have utility companies that have plans to rebuild water infrastructure or sewer infrastructure, or PG&E installing underground power. We have to work and balance all of those so that we don't run into the situation where we repave a road and now they're either subject to a 5-year moratorium, which we're working on, or the road is getting torn up after we've rebuilt it. We just, that's just tip of the iceberg of the things that we're dealing with when we're trying to deliver projects like that.
Right.
Yeah, so thanks for asking all those questions and bringing up my points for me. Yeah, the Cobb roads that were burned in the Valley Fire are year 3, and as we discussed yesterday, they're not all specifically called out on the map. So I want everyone to know that's listening, all the roads that were burned will be part of that project. However, we do have PG&E undergrounding, and we do have the water company consolidation projects continuing. So it does have to be a collaborative effort. But once we have the plan adopted, then we can show these partners, this is where we plan to do the work. You know, can you get it done before we start the road project? Or, you know, do we have to move things around? What's realistic? Because the 5-year moratorium that you're talking about is if a utility company has to cut into a road that's within 5 years old, they have to return it to the standard that it was before. And that's going to be difficult too. So we want to avoid that. We don't want to cut into any more new roads.
Absolutely. And you make a great point. And for those folks who are either here in the room or watching this, and they don't see their road in the list of roads or on the map, this is a planning document. It's more identifying regions. Those roads will get picked up as part of the design process. And for that matter, there are roads that have very low volume, and people are questioning, why are you going to do that road? There's nothing on it. We'll make those adjustments.
And I remember we talked about that once in Upper Lake, because there was some roads, and it was just the plan that was written out, even though the road, you had explained that road wouldn't have been addressed. And so some of them just aren't known by the group doing the map. And so, yeah, I remember that topic of discussion at one time as well.
Okay, you want, sure.
One last thing, and just reading this, obviously taking it in for the second time too, Scott. As we're telling the narrative and the story here too, on the report, is there any way to incorporate, and maybe I missed it, and you can correct me if I did, this is really part of a recovery plan. You talked about it after the devastating fires we've had since the Valley Fire, starting each year in the recovery process. That somewhere in our 10-year plan here that we really do a good job of laying that out too, because we want to use it not only as, yes, this is our road maintenance plan as we're moving forward, but for 5, 6, 7 years, it was devastated by fires throughout the county, the recovery processes. Because I know in the beginning after the Valley Fire, the county did a lot of conversating with FEMA and others to look at road monies to rehabilitate after the fires. We kind of got stonewalled on some of those requests, and that's the reality of it. But using this plan too to say, hey, yep, it's a road index of the PCI that we currently need to do on the regular maintenance, but it's also part of the recovery process we're still engaged in here in Lake County after the devastating fires. So you can correct me if it's not laid out in there, but I think we need to do that, because when we're talking to the federal agencies, Congressman Thompson, look at that. This is still a part of recovery of what we've had to deal with from those devastating fires. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I think it needs to be laid out in this 10-year plan, because 8 years from now, if we're very successful, that's going to fade away, or even 5. But I think it needs to be a part of that conversation when we're looking at these huge funding gaps, because it's a recovery process.
Okay? Yeah.
And I don't
know how we can, the point is a real good one, and I think where we'll really be able to use that leverage is in those applications for special funding, to make that argument that, this just isn't a maintenance project that we're wanting to do, this is a recovery. And that, that application or that narrative to the Congress or whoever we're asking for those special funds, that's where that argument's going to, I think, have the most impact.
Yeah. And we had a conversation not that long ago about coming in January at the first of the calendar year and talking about this, because a plan is not very helpful if it sits on a shelf. So coming and having this board discussion, the beginning of the calendar year, what is the plan for this year? What are the funding opportunities? What do we need to look for? How can we all work together to close that gap for the year? And so that's going to be a really important part of the strategy to make sure that it's living and that we can get to implementation.
Yes.
Okay, so now we'll open it up for the public. Do we have anybody in the chambers that would like to come up and speak on this? Got a few people. You can state your name and you will have 3 minutes.
I'm Bill Grudy. I'm the president of the Buckingham Homeowners Association, and I just want to say that we were, on the good news side, we're very happy to see Soda Bay Road in the 2024 plan. It's one of the red streets, but as I tell my folks about it tonight at our meeting, I'd like to just get some sense of what is the likelihood of those red roads being addressed on schedule in 2024. Just based on your knowledge of revenue sources, I understand the shortfall and how difficult it is and the challenges that you all face, but what is your sense? What would you tell our people about the prospect of seeing Soda Bay Road, not Soda Bay Road, Little Borax Road resurfaced or repaired? It's a big concern in our community.
Well, let me answer it without an answer, and that would be, we're looking at area, community-wide projects and programs. And, you know, you're asking about a specific road.
Well, I could broaden out the red roads, because there are red roads in Soda Bay as well as Little Borax.
So.
But that's something.
Our plan is to stick to that. My plan is to stick to that 10-year plan. We're going to put plans and specs together for these projects. And when we put the plans and specs together, one of the things that the consultants will do is they're going to give us a construction estimate, and we're going to look at available funding, and if we've got the money to build the project, then we're going to put it out to bid, and we're going to try to build it.
And it's red before green?
Well, that's where we're looking, yes. You know, I just mentioned that, you know, Cobb Mountain is frankly in much worse shape. So, you know, and I think we need to be looking at that area as well.
Yeah, I just think as we look at it, translating it, you know, the numbers are one thing, but we look 10 years down the road at present funding levels, Little Borax Road becomes impassable, and all of a sudden the other two roads in our community that have been identified become like Soda Bay, or like Little Borax Road. So just, well.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, you know what our thoughts are. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Jason Weston. I live on Hendricks Road out in Scotts Valley, and there is currently a project going on with PG&E replacing the telephone poles. And in the areas where Hendricks Road is good, it's fine. They replace the pole and that's fine. In the places where Hendricks Road is marginal, their heavy trucks are causing really significant damage to the road. And I'm concerned about that, not just about on our road, but really everywhere PG&E is doing this. And I'm concerned that we're going to see a serious degradation in road quality throughout the county, anywhere where they're doing this work. Where roads are marginal, they're going to get much worse. And my question is, are you aware of this? Are you working with PG&E on it? Are you like taking pictures of the roads before and after, so to ensure that they repair, like get the roads at least back to where they were before they started their work?
The answer to all those is yes, yes, and yes. We've been working with PG&E for some time now. They have a number of permits with us. We're very aware of the work they're doing out on in Scotts Valley and on Hendricks, and we're spending a lot of time with PG&E and trying to get their road rehabilitation up to snuff. So yeah, and they've been responsive, I will say that. But we've got a lot of work to do with them to get their work up to snuff. So
Yeah.
we're working on it.
Yeah.
But we're very aware of it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this PCI and I'm thinking everywhere they go, it's going to go down unless
Right.
something is done to restore those roads as they get damaged.
No, we're very aware of their plans and working with them pretty extensively. And when I say that, and I'm kind of smiling because of the hours that we have spent. It's been a lot. We have staff that's pretty diligent and in the field every day working with their crews.
I can only imagine PG&E is on my property more than I ever imagined. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Appreciate the
And
question.
Scott, I don't know how you want to respond to this, but we've got some public watching about the Gulf Road area where the undergrounding project impacted the roads and what the plan is for that. I get that question a lot.
We've asked them to completely rebuild those roads. They've damaged them to the point where they need to be rebuilt. There's no trench paving, no trench patch. Those roads need to be rebuilt. So we've told that to them, and they're working on it.
Yep.
I don't have a date. I don't know when they're going to do that, but they've been put on notice that that's what our expectations are.
Great, thank you. Come on up.
I'm Kathy Andre with the Riviera Heights Homeowners Association. And I'm learning here, so I just have a question. We're very fortunate, several of the HOAs, that our roads are in very good shape. What happens over a 10-year program? Are they maintained at all during those 10 years? Or at the end of 10 years, do we drop down to a 5 and have to start all over again? How does that part work?
So the quick answer is yes, your roads will continue to be maintained.
Okay.
One of the things that Deborati pointed out was, roads that are in good condition cost much less to maintain than they do once they've gotten in poor condition. So we're mindful of that. We do chip seal projects on roads that are in good shape. Some of the roads that we're doing chip seal on, we're doing a lot of other subsurface or full depth reclamation type work to deal with roads that have gotten too far. But the chip seal is the cheapest thing that we have for surfacing a road. And so roads that are in decent shape, we'll come back and resurface those. We generally do that every 7 to 9 years. So we keep an eye on your roads and know about how long it's been since any surfacing's been done, and we'll be back in there.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Kees Winkelman. This is for you. I was in the understanding when they did the new water line on the Summit subdivision up on Cobb, that FEMA had about $250,000 allocated for repaving that roads. Do you know what happened with that money, or did we lost that, or do you have any update on?
What was the project that you?
On the Summit estate?
The Summit neighborhood with and there was funding, there was FEMA funding, but there was such a long time period till that work got done with the water pipeline in the Pine Summit area. You and I have been talking about this for years.
So
And is
Supervisor-
that money still available?
Yeah, no, it's not.
Oh, it's
And let me tell you, just give you a real quick history here. 2015, we had the Valley Fire come through and destroy everything in the roads, and we wrote up roads for damages. And FEMA initially gave us money for the repair of roads in the field. Their field personnel wrote those up. Once those reports made it back to a headquarters in Virginia or somewhere, they said, well, no, you can't rebuild roads you can't use FEMA money to rebuild roads. And the reason for that, their argument was, if you rebuild the road, the pavement condition will be better than what it was prior to the fire. Mm-hmm. And that's considered a betterment, which they won't allow. And frankly, there's no way to repair a road back to, if it's a PCI of 50, and now it's been damaged and it's a PCI of 25, there's no way to repair it back to 50. When you repair it, it's going to be a new road, and FEMA considered that a betterment. Supervisor Simon mentioned that, we kind of created some policy, and we did. Every fire that happened in California after the Valley Fire, FEMA was very, very shrewd, and they came right out and said, we're not giving them money for pavement repairs.
Oh, okay.
And that report, that damage report, was actually done by mistake. And because of the delay between the delay while we were waiting for the water company to get their water lines in, because we didn't want to repave the road and then have it torn up by the water project, FEMA used that delay as the reason to deny the report.
And there's no way getting back to them. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so we got to set precedent. Come on up.
John Moss. I do have questions. I appreciate the road people that are patching Wildcat Road. And I think that all the heavy equipment that has been on our roads, and they're still taking down the trees to avoid a fire. And I'm questioning the tree mortality program, and I'm questioning the underground roads that are going in thanks to PG&E. Where is the money going to come from, and what kind of road devastation will that bring to us? Or is Caltrans taking care of that? Caltrans is involved, and the state is also taking care of the roads. And some of the bridges that we get are given to us. The funding for the bridges come from the federal government. Are you mentioning all the bridges that you've built? Is that from the roads, or is that a different category? Thank you. It gets very confusing after a while.
I'm actually a little confused by the question, but.
There's a couple of things there. First of all, he did mention that his staff is monitoring the areas where PG&E is working, but on Wildcat, they're doing tree work, but they still have their big trucks there. They're not undergrounding the roads, they're undergrounding the wires in certain areas, and they're not doing that on Wildcat at this time. Caltrans is responsible for state highways. Public Works is responsible for county roads. And I think that.
Bridges, yes, we have replaced and done a lot of bridge work with federal highway bridge program money. It's called HBP, Highway Bridge, and it's federal dollars.
Okay. Any other public comment? I'm not seeing any in the chambers or in the Zoom room. So we'll close that and bring it back to the board. We do have action on this item, which is good.
So question for staff, is it two motions or one? Can we do it? Because it looks like we're approving the adoption of the plan update, and then we're also approving the 10-year pavement rehab plan itself. It looks like I can do it in a single motion.
And either way.
All right. There's no further comment. Honorable Chair, I move to approve the adoption of the 2022 County Pavement Management Plan update and the 10-year pavement rehabilitation plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And then,
Can we do 5.13?
well, we've got also 7.3.
I would recommend, if you have time, if you wish, to do 5.13.
Okay.
And 7.3, since you have Director De Leon in the seat.
Let's do 7.3 and then we'll do 5.13. You're here. What?
Clover Creek.
Clover Creek. Okay, 7.3, consideration of resolution approving agreement for the purchase of the right-of-way for the bridge replacement project on First Street over Clover Creek and authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute the purchase agreements on behalf of the County of Lake. Director De Leon.
Thank you. Well, as the memo describes, we're in the process of pursuing right-of-way for a bridge replacement project. And in order to kind of streamline this process, we've requested that that you approve the agreements for the purchase of the right-of-way, and then allow me to perform the paperwork for that. I think there's 3 or 4 parcels there that we're working on, and happy to try to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you have anything, Supervisor Crandall?
No.
Anything from the public on this item? Okay, I will bring it back to the board for action.
I offer the resolution.
The resolution's been offered.
All right, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall?
Yes.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes. Okay. Now we can get to 5.13. Adopt resolution to establish a list of projects proposed to be funded in fiscal year 2023-2024 pursuant to the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. This is a Public Works item pulled by Supervisor Green.
Yeah, thank you. I only pulled this for a reason. It's good news. I was excited to see the list of projects includes Hendricks Road, but as of last night, I didn't know it was there because I haven't read everything in the agenda thing. So the speaker who on the previous item is part of our Scotts Valley Advisory Council, and I met with the council last night, and they wanted me to share some information with the board, so I just want to read this into the record. That the Advisory Council wished to notify the Board of Supervisors that PG&E is severely damaging already marginalized roads, and Hendricks Road in particular, and we need Public Works to do an immediate inspection of road conditions to establish a baseline, basically to ensure PG&E leaves the road at least as good condition as when they started work, and if they don't do a good job, to assess any discernible damage on top of what's already out there. So I'm sharing that because the council asked me to do that. You've already heard from Mr. Weston, and he may wish to comment on this again. I did drive across Hendricks. I did see some problems. I didn't see it to be consistent across all the work sites. It's also, I guess they're calling the pole hardening, so it's different from a undergrounding project. We do have some undergrounding up on Laurel Dell, which is a different discussion that may involve some pavement rehab. But the happy news is in this agenda item, it looks like all of Hendricks Road, or a good chunk of it, is already up for a rehab project. So it's possible that when PG&E coordinates with your department, they may have known that. So if there was some damage done, at least there appears to be a silver lining to that, in that does appear to be on track for pavement this year. So if there was anything you wanted to add about the length of that project, I don't know if it was the whole length. It sounds like it will basically take care of anything PG&E did on this pole hardening thing. I know there are other stretches of road in Scotts Valley that may have a mix of pole hardening or undergrounding or stuff like that. So, but this agenda item just creates a list of projects for SB1 funding this year, and Hendricks Road is on that list. So I did want to take care of the council expressing their concerns, as was stated again by Mr. Weston here, and read that into the record. But the good news is, here I am half a day later, and I get to say, hey, they're paving Hendricks Road. How about that?
Yeah, well, that's included in our chip seal project that we're doing out on Scotts Valley Road, Hendricks, and several other roads in that region, Riggs and others. So that project will get done, and we are working with PG&E. And yes, they are doing some underground work on Scotts Valley, and so our project, we're doing everything we can to calendar around their work. We cannot go out and do the work and then have them tear into it. So we're working very closely with PG&E to get their work done before our work gets done.
Okay. So similar on a previous item, maybe you see a road on a project list, but maybe there's some other affiliated projects that come on when you actually do the work. So on this particular thing, I just saw Hendricks Road, but you mentioned there may be some chip sealing on Scotts Valley too. So is there a way, and it doesn't have to happen today, but is there a way we can, for example, in Scotts Valley, just get a list of upcoming projects so that we can share with our community councils, and I assume the other soups might be interested. I know you have like massive spreadsheets of projects and stuff like that, so it may be a little hard to follow all the bouncing balls. But clearly, before they passed this little request last night, if I had known in advance that, and if they had known in advance that Hendricks Road was on the list to be paved this year, and if we had some additional information about other parts of the valley, then, you know, we can kill two birds with one stone. You can appear to be proactive with the community, and we can communicate those things in advance of the work getting done. So I know PG&E is doing some outreach on the undergrounding. I don't know that the outreach happened with the pole hardening at all. And it's hard for you to follow the bouncing balls too, but maybe in the future, if we can maybe distill down just to look, here's what's happening in Scotts Valley this year, so it isn't a mystery to them or to me, so.
Yep.
And then I think that's the only comments. I guess we'll go to public comment, and then it looks like there's a resolution to offer.
Yeah, that's why we've got the plan now, so we know. And we continue to meet with PG&E several times a year. They sort of let us know what they're doing. But now we have the plan, they have to work within our projections.
We're meeting with them almost about every other week.
Yeah. Okay, any public comment on this issue? Okay. Then we'll bring it back to the board for action.
For the resolution?
Resolution's been offered.
Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.